this is another part in our series on faith. What are my other options? Maybe what's happening in the world today, or even in your own life personally, is causing you to have your faith undermined. What are your other options? Well, the first option is to start doubting. James talks about this when he's dealing with believers who are under severe persecution and they just don't know what to do or where to go. He says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him. Let him ask in faith, without doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. That person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways." So maybe at this point, you're still looking to God, but you've started to doubt. James makes it clear this is a poor option. And it's also the first step in the serpent's temptation in the Garden of Eden of Eve, when he questions God's truth, saying, "Has God said?" inviting Eve to doubt. A second option is to start diverging. That is to start to turn to things other than God to put your faith in. Paul deals with this in the letter to the Romans, where he states that people who do such things claim to be wise, but are actually fools, because they exchange the truth about God for a lie and worship and serve the creature rather than the Creator. And in essence, this is idolatry, when even a good thing becomes an ultimate thing, taking the place of God in our hearts and minds. It in essence becomes an idol. That will start to consume us and destroy us. Paul goes on to say, "And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done." So at this point, someone is starting to look at things other than God, starting to replace God. And I think Paul makes it clear that's an even worse option. Again, we see a parallel in that original temptation with Eve's response to the serpent. She relies completely on herself. She diverges from the truth because she actually misquotes what God had to say. Third option is to start denying. This is when we lose faith in God entirely. King David talks about this in the Psalms. In fact, he repeats it twice. Often the Bible repeats something to get your attention. Just in case you missed it the first time, here it is again. The fool says in his heart, "There is no God." They are corrupt, they do abominable deeds, there is none who does good. This is the ultimate position of blind pride and foolishness, denying the very existence of God. And David describes their end. There they are, in great terror where there is no terror. God scatters the bones of him who encamps against you. You put them to shame, for God has rejected them. Because when you're in this state and you're so full of blind pride, you actually find yourself in complete opposition to God. Peter talks about this in his first epistle. God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. You know, folks, life is hard enough as it is without living in opposition to God. So at this point, an individual has got to the part of their lives where they are completely denying the existence of God. God's no longer even in the picture. And the scripture makes it clear this is the worst option of all. And again, we see a parallel in that first temptation in the Garden of Eden of Eve, when the serpent states, "You will not surely die," which is an outright lie. And it completely denies the truth of God. So where are you on the spectrum? Doubt, divergence, denial? You know, one of the key symptoms that something's not quite right is a sense of dissatisfaction with God. That is something that's leading us to grumble or complain or murmur against Him. And Lamentations gives both a frank diagnosis and solution to the problem. Why should a living man complain? A man about the punishment of his sins. Let us test and examine our ways and return to the Lord. Folks, return to faith in God. It's the only true option.